Now, in some good news for both Keir Starmer and the Labour Party, they have overtaken Boris and the Tories according to a poll conducted by The Observer. Labour are 3 points ahead of the Tories according to a poll conducted between the 20th and the 23rd of September on a sample size of 2002 respondents. Labour are currently on 42%, the Conservatives on 39%, while the SNP come in at 6% and the Lib Dems trail them at 5%. This is a massive swing to Labour in a very short period. If we go back to the early days of the pandemic, the Tories were ahead of Labour by a shocking 26-point lead. So what is driving this force here? Well, you can probably imagine. Brexit has been overshadowed by the pandemic. At the time, Boris Johnson's government had a 65% approval rating. Many people had been convinced that Brexit had been done and it had sort of dipped from the radar. That 65% has since plummeted to 30% as of this month. But it isn't just Labour who are doing better. Keir Starmer is also winning over voters. He leads Boris Johnson by 4 points, with more than half of voters believing he is Prime Minister material. Boris Johnson's own support continues to drop, and this could be one of the reasons why Rishi Sunak delivered his work support scheme alone in Parliament this week. Boris has dropped from -6 to -12 approval. Yes, you heard that right. This is the first time Labour has been ahead of the Tories since Boris Johnson became Prime Minister. Keir Starmer immediately distanced himself from the deeply unpopular Jeremy Corbyn as soon as he took up the job, and while some in the Labour Party are not too keen on Keir or his rejection of Corbynism, voters seem to be much more on board with Keir at the helm. I think Keir Starmer's performances in the House of Commons are helping him. He is proving himself to be articulate and professional when compared to Boris Johnson, who appears confused, angry and flustered. Starmer's style is more of a lawyer building a case against a defendant than perhaps the type of aggressive theatre that we're used to seeing during Prime Minister's questions. Keir Starmer is also helped perhaps by an almost empty chamber, one that shows Boris up for the fool that he is and deprives him of his cheering supporters on the back benches. The government's dealing of the pandemic has been criticised both on the left and the right, and this I believe is harming both Boris and the party. I imagine the Tories are watching the polls carefully, and as I've said before, as soon as Boris Johnson begins to pull the party down with him, he'll be removed and replaced with a much more palatable figure. I think a number of different issues have harmed the government's approval rating. The confusion over the lockdown, the exam fiasco, the role of Dominic Cummings, the testing shambles, along with the test and trace failure, and even just yesterday the problem with the world-beating app, which looks likely to be binned before long. Trust in the government has been eroded by the antics of Boris, his advisors and the cabinet. The Prime Minister has attempted to shift the focus back to Brexit, which he thinks is his trump card, but I think this is starting to wear a bit thin, as the threats to the EU have pretty much fallen apart. Perhaps the one silver lining for the Tories is that the general election is years away. However, next year could be a sink or swim moment for the Conservatives, as the election in Scotland, Brexit and the local elections will take place. Will the public stick by Boris and his bunch? What do you think? Let me know in the comments section. Thanks a lot. I want to say a big thank you to all of my patrons. You ensure that this channel continues to exist. I'm eternally grateful for all of your support. If you join Patreon, you will receive instant access to our Discord server, where we have both audio and video chats. You can chat with me and other patrons, where we discuss important and non-important issues. Becoming a patron per month costs about the same as a large coffee, so why not check it out?